Hello, everybody. Thank you all so much for listening to Meaningless, where we look into internet nonsense and try to understand what in the hell it all means. Lately, I've had a lot of guests on the show, but I am thankful to have my co-host back, my very favorite person to podcast with, my friend Bobby.
Hello.
Bobby, it's been too long since you've been on our show.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Life has kind of happened a lot.
Yeah, a lot of life has happened.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
I'm back.
Yes, and I'm so glad you're back. Now, a lot of people at this point are probably thinking that the podcast is just me, but no, it's me and Bobby. Bobby's my co-host because she's hilarious, and if you don't think so, you're wrong.
Yeah.
For the record, I am extremely thankful for everyone who has been on the show so far, and I've got more guests coming up that I'm very excited to have on, but there's just something comforting about being in the studio with my co-host. So, Bobby,
Yes.
Barbarella, Bob Rule,
Ooh.
I have a meme for you to look at.
All right. Well,
I would like you to describe it to our listeners and tell us how it reads.
all right. I'll do my best. All right. So it looks like a school bus. I don't know. They got kind of weird windows on here. We never had blinds on our school bus. Anyway, there's a bunch of young people, young men, young people on this bus. And it says, and then the whole bus clapped. And everybody on the bus has got their hands up in the air. It looks like they're clapping and rejoicing in a way.
All right. Thank you for that
Sure.
explanation. So, yeah, we've got a bus full of people clapping, and it says, and the whole bus clapped. So, what got this meme on my mind recently was I was listening to a podcast called Hood Politics. Listeners, if you haven't listened to Hood Politics, you should definitely check it out. The host prop is really good at taking political and historical events and concepts and situations and putting them into like a clear modern language, and he's very insightful and just fun to listen to in general. I won't go into too much detail about what his podcast episode was about, because if you want to learn about it, you should listen to Hood Politics. The episode is called It Gives Blacks Rule. But basically, he compares some supposed evidence regarding recent events to something that happened in 2015, where a white dude in Alabama clearly faked a hate crime against himself and said that it was perpetrated by black people.
Nice.
You got to listen to that episode. It's good. The event was so laughably false, though, that it became a meme in itself. I remember the situation. I remember finding it very funny because of how stupid it was. But these fake stories and faked evidence seem to be still pervasive, even amongst younger people who have spent their entire lives with access to the internet and have spent their entire lives encountering absolute nonsense. And one would think that they would have a more keen awareness of what is and is not valid. And that takes us to our meme. So, to illustrate the point of this meme, I'm going to read a story for you.
All right.
And this is potentially the origin of the meme. So, this is a post originally on Facebook, and it reads, "Oh my God, I just witnessed the single greatest moment in human history.
Wow.
On a bus, heading home from the city, I was greeted by an incredibly nice Russian-sounding bus driver with a smile on his face. About 4 stops later, in the valley, of course, a bogan hops on with his skanky, I assume, girlfriend." A bogan is it's a Australian term for the best word in American. The best term in American would be like riffraff, you know.
Okay.
So a bogan hops on with his skanky, I assume, girlfriend. May have been his sister, may have been both. Naturally, he does not have money for the bus, so of course the bogan, henceforth referred to as Shit Skull, blames the bus driver, using all manner of racial slurs, loud profanity, and general offensive douchebaggery. Shit Skull proceeds to be an asshole and make the entire bus shuffle uncomfortably in their seats, all except one man. This man, I wish I could be this man. The average-looking hero that stepped up to defend the poor bus driver. Quote, "Look, mate, he's just doing his job. How's about you calm down?" I'm not going to keep doing that. We have Australian listeners and they're going to make fun of me.
Oh, yeah.
So how's about you calm down and leave the bus driver alone? It's not his fault you can't pay. The logic of the situation made a slight whistling noise as it passed over Shit Skull's head. as it passed over Shit Skull's head. This reads so stupid. We could see the Tonka truck gears clunk and grind in this man's underdeveloped cranium. Calm down, it must be a challenge. Quote, "Are you trying to start me, cunt? You want to go, you fucking cunt? You want to fucking go me?" Ah, truly the words of a poet. But even Oscar Wilde himself couldn't have predicted the Batman-esque reaction of, "Yeah, actually, let's do this, off the bus." You could hear a penny drop in the 256 megabyte brain inside Shit Skull's shitty little skull. Finally, the judging eyes of the bus, coupled with the high-pitched, slurring voice of his sister-daughter telling him to take him and quoting directly, "Don't take none that shit, babe," convinced both of them to step off the bus, ready to fight. Calmer than a monk on morphine, our hero turns to the bus driver and simply says, "Shut the door, mate," and walks back to his motherfucking seat. The bus driver shut the door, drove away, and the entire bus erupted. We were clapping, we were cheering. I gave Shit Skull the finger out the window, and I'm pretty sure people hugged.
This is a great story.
Yeah. Yeah, great story. So clearly this exchange didn't happen.
Yeah.
So, because first off, I'm pretty certain that Australians don't hug each other ever.
No.
That was a joke. Okay, shout out
Never met any.
to our Australian listeners. Actually, for any Aussies listening, I do have another joke. An Australian couple is watching TV. The wife turns to her husband and says, "Bruce, have you ever told me that you love me?" Bruce, without taking his eyes off the screen, replies, "Cheryl, I told you I love you the day we got married. If I ever change my mind, I'll let you know." So, because of that joke, I actually ended up reading a lot about affection and dating and romance in Australia because ADHD brain.
Sure.
And I learned some interesting things, but that's not what this episode's about. This episode's about clapping, I guess. So, because of the obviously absurd ending to the story, phrases like, "and then everybody clapped," or "and then everybody applauded," became a sort of meme response to express skepticism toward a story. Another example of this is using the phrase, "cool story, bro." In order to pretend to be neutral, I'm going to give an example of a right-wing lie and a left-wing lie to which the phrase, "and then everybody clapped," would be appropriate. Or, in legalese, memo apropos. Here is an example from the left. I was sitting on the bus the other day, and at the back of the bus was a lesbian couple holding hands and giggling to each other. An elderly woman came and sat beside me and mumbled to herself, "Disgusting homosexuals." I then turned to her and say, "I'm gay." She shouted, "Driver, stop the bus and make this homosexual move away from me." Driver, a big Jamaican man, stopped the bus and pointed toward me and where the other women were sitting and said, "You, off the bus." At first, I thought he was talking to me. When I questioned if it was me, he was asking to get off the bus, he replied, "No, her," and pointed at the woman. And the driver said, "My son is gay, and I will not allow homophobes on my bus, and the bus will not move until you're off." The woman then got off the bus and said, "You're all going to hell," which the driver replied to by saying, "Well, I'll see you there, as you're not getting into heaven if you can't accept that some people are gay." He then closed the bus doors and drove off. An appropriate response to this story would be, "and then everybody on the bus clapped and cheered, and I'm pretty sure some people were fucking." Now, here is an example from the right. Got stuck in a networking event with a conservative woman that was voting for Kamala. "You, of all people?" I said, "Why?" Embarrassed, she said, "For women's rights." I asked her husband. He sheepishly said Kamala. Remaining calm, I took the time to explain the abortion laws and explained it's not what she has heard. She said she didn't know all of this and will research and change her vote for Trump if I was right. Husband fist bumped me and whispered, "Thank you. Winning." An appropriate response to this story would be, "and then everybody clapped and hugged, and the bus driver came down just to give me a high five, and that bus driver's name? Jesus Christ." Later, I found out Jesus had slipped a letter into my pocket, but it wasn't just a letter, it was a free pass to sin and still get into heaven. I'm going to use it to say the N-word. So, approaching these goofy stories with skepticism is a fun and in some ways valuable exercise to encourage others to question the validity of a lot of the nonsense we see online. Now, I have another story that is really interesting regarding this type of skepticism. It might seem trivial at first, but there is a lesson to be learned here. In September of 2019, I almost started saying it in that voice again. In September of 2019, on the website TombRaiderForums.com, the threads were going crazy about the game Shadow of the Tomb Raider, which had just come out. And in a spoilers thread, a user named Tombstone asked why nobody is talking about a letter at the end of the game from a character named Natla. Immediately, people started calling Tombstone out for lying about this supposed ending and saying that Tombstone had fallen victim to some of the nonsense rumors that were getting spread around about Natla having some involvement in the game. Tombstone is on a thread full of Tomb Raider fans who have beaten the game and know that Tombstone is clearly making this up, right? So to anybody who had finished the game, they know that doesn't happen. This backlash did not stop Tombstone from continuing, however. Tombstone posted a picture of the letter from Natla. Immediately, people called him out for photoshopping the picture. It was low quality, and he had taken a picture of the screen with his phone, so looking for evidence of Photoshop was not really an option.
Yeah.
But people had fun with skeptical responses. One of them responding with a picture of Pikachu in the image and saying, I found the Pikachu ending. Like, wow, just making fun of this dude,
Right.
or this person. I don't know if it's a man or a woman. So the reason why somebody might make something like this up is because it would gather a lot of attention if somebody had noticed an Easter egg involving Natla that no one else did, because Jacqueline Natla was the antagonist in the original Tomb Raider that came out in 1996 and had not been part of the series for over a decade at that point. So this would be a major comeback if it were teased in the series, right? But this would also be a great troll if you could convince other people that it was true.
Right.
I'm going to read a little bit of the exchanges here. All right, so the exact post from Tombstone reads, nobody has brought up the letter Laura gets from Natla yet, just to kind of throw it into the conversation, see if you can get people worked up with this kind of thing,
Sure.
So the responses are, the very first response says, there's no letter from Natla. It's a photoshopped image and a rumor. And somebody says she doesn't get a letter from Natla. And then more and more. And so Tombstone fights back and says, yes, she does, LMAO. I have the game unpatched, and the letter says Lady Laura Croft from Jacqueline Natla. It's real. Or are you guys trolling? Somebody said, post a screenshot then. And Tombstone responded with, I did. Why are you people saying it's fake? The fuck? So then that's when somebody responds with that Pikachu response. So the person posts another photo posts a photo of their screen with that letter on it. And somebody says, could be a photoshopped image. It's just being viewed on a TV screen. Okay. So that doesn't really prove anything, right? But this person's still pushing for it. So eventually they tell the person that they'll believe him if he can post a video of it happening, right?
Okay.
So he's like, I don't have internet. I don't have a way to screen cap, whatever.
Yeah.
So he's using the internet on his phone. Tomb Raider Forums is a simple forum website, so it doesn't take a lot of loading or anything.
Okay.
So if you've got a poor internet connection, it is accessible to somebody who may not have a good internet connection and wouldn't be able to upload easily, a video of them, capturing their gameplay or whatever. But eventually, he does post a video of it. So people respond saying, wow, that proved it. So he absolutely proved it. He proved this ending that nobody else found, nobody else talked about, never mentioned by the developers, never mentioned by anybody reviewing the game, never mentioned anywhere. He proved it, Bobby.
Sure.
By posting that video.
Yeah, because you can't fake a video.
That's right.
I mean, if you got a video, that's concrete evidence right there.
But a lot of people were like, oh, wow, okay, you proved it. And this person responded with, Tombstone responded with a much-deserved "kiss my bubble butt, haters."
It's a classy response.
Yeah, love it though. So there were some issues with the event, right?
Sure.
So no reviewers had done it. The game had been out for over a week. Nobody else found that ending. And so people started saying, well, even if you had an unpatched version, the patch notes don't even mention changing an ending to the game. They were like things like, fixing, I think, hair physics on Laura, and adding like a photo mode where you could control the camera and make, take photos in the game.
Okay.
Stuff like that, little patches like that. And those were in the patch notes, nothing about changing the ending of the game. So nothing about any of that. So this clearly made up video.
Yeah.
So I'm going to read a quote from the developers of the game. During the course of development on Shadow of the Tomb Raider, multiple post-credit scenes were explored. Unfortunately, one of the directions that was considered but not chosen was mistakenly included in the game.
Whoa.
Tombstone was fucking right. Tombstone was telling the truth the whole fucking time.
He just happened to find something that nobody else did. That's crazy.
Yeah, this weird situation where he's the only person on all of the internet who's like, just runs into this ending and is like, why isn't anybody talking about this? It's because he's the only fucking one. But he was right. It was true. It got released by mistake, which is a huge fucking mistake by the developers, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
But fucking nuts is that. So it turned out he was right the whole time. If I were in that situation, I'd be ready to think it was fake.
Oh, yeah.
Because that would be I would respond with fun skepticism, like the everybody clapped or cool story, bro, or that kind of thing, or the Pikachu response, stuff like that.
Right.
People were having fun with their skepticism with it. But turned out, Tombstone, when he told everybody to kiss my bubble butt, haters, Tombstone deserved that. He deserved to say that.
Yeah.
So skepticism is generally a good thing. We should approach things with some level of critical thinking that does not leave us open to grifters that are telling us what we want to hear. However, sometimes too much skepticism can lead to speculations and outright conspiracies, and once again, leave us vulnerable to grifters. When I say grifters, I mean people who are selling you lies in order to make money or make some kind of political change, or they're shilling for certain politicians or companies, or they're trying to create a narrative to protect themselves legally. So, or we end up hurting people like Tombstone, who was fucking right the whole time. So I want to address briefly after the Charlie Kirk assassination, there were text messages that were released that the assassin had allegedly sent to his girlfriend. And in this conversation, there was evidence, somewhat, displaying a motive, things like that. Now, this was met with a lot of skepticism, and we're talking skepticism from both sides. When the text messages were released, I had seen people post, and had even people say in person, somebody, I almost said who, but somebody had said, "Cool story, bro," when they, out loud when they were reading them on their phone, because I had told her about the text messages. So that is why this whole everybody clapped thing is relevant right now. It's because people on the right and the left are kind of meeting this claim of evidence coming from the FBI with that same kind of skepticism. Even though people on the right and the left are both skeptical of the text message exchange, they have different reasons for being skeptical. And they also have different theories as to why it would be faked. There are people on the left who are saying things like, this isn't how a person talks, right and left are saying that this is not how a normal 22-year-old talks.
Right.
I would argue a normal 22-year-old doesn't go and fucking assassinate somebody either. So trying to put normal talking on a guy who's definitely not normal, that doesn't work for me. That does not work for me. That is not convincing. But then there are people on the right saying that the conversation was fabricated in order to absolve the trans person involved from involvement, like to show that they weren't involved in the killing and didn't know about it, when really they were probably behind it the whole time. So dumb conspiracies, are being floated around. And when I was reading these text messages, I was also skeptical. But the conversation does not feel natural. That doesn't mean anything to me. Maybe they just talk weird. Also, when you're in the situation running from the police, who knows how natural your conversation is going to sound, right?
Right. Yeah.
So my skepticism with the text messages comes from the fact that it doesn't come from the fact that he doesn't talk like normal 22-year-old or anything. Some people are saying like, well, autocorrect there's no bad autocorrect in there that happens, when you're texting in a hurry and stuff like that. It doesn't come, my skepticism doesn't come from any of that. I think my skepticism, it started when I was reading the part where his alleged girlfriend is asking, "You're not the one who did it, are you?" And he doesn't respond with, "Yes, I'm sorry," or "Yeah, I'm sorry." He responds with, I'm sorry." Again, this is only speculation. I want to emphasize the fact that I'm going to employ some speculation here. So don't take what I'm about to say as fact. If you're a listener, don't assume what I'm saying is absolutely true. I find these text messages hard to believe because the way, like, it started at that I'm sorry, because it reads almost like it was worded exactly the way it would need to be worded if a prosecution needed to present it as a confession.
Okay.
Whereas if he would have said yeah or yes, there could have been some speculation as to, or possibility that he misunderstood or misread the question,
Right.
or something like that. But if he says I am, then that's self-implicating,
Okay.
So, and the response didn't feel natural to me, of course, like the conversation, none of it does. But my suspicion comes from the fact that it reads like it's specifically a confession.
Right.
Then he also describes he describes that he did the killing. He explains why. He also describes the murder weapon, the fact that he hid it, that he was trying to hide from police and retrieve the weapon, that he's trying to return to his vehicle and escape. He also says in the text messages that he's done a good job not leaving any evidence behind.
And he's taking the time to text all this while he's running.
That, and also I think I did a pretty good job not leaving any evidence behind as I type out all the
the
evidence
right on the phone. Yeah, they can, they can trace all that. They can see that even after you delete it. They can get it back.
Yeah, yeah, and in it he says, delete this exchange.
Okay.
Everybody knows you can still find those,
Yeah.
right? There's a way to find those text messages. You would still probably delete them, right? But
obviously, yeah.
but you wouldn't think that would fix
Not gonna
anything.
work.
But then conveniently, he also tells his girlfriend not to show up in the media and not to talk to the media, and not make any public appearances. That's also very convenient, right? Because we don't get to see her, we don't get to see this person, this supposed trans person that that was the secret mind behind this, supposedly it's a trans person, his girlfriend.
Yeah.
Supposedly she's a trans woman. And supposedly he confessed all this stuff to her, including describing the fucking murder weapon. And they found, and we are actually going to do an episode on, trolls and memes, because there were memes etched into the bullets that he used to kill Charlie Kirk.
Okay.
And one of them was a meme about finding a bulge, between somebody's legs.
Right.
It's an old meme. It comes from, I believe, furry culture. And so the FBI had come out right away and interpreted this as trans ideology because there was a bulge, and they were. So we're gonna go into some details about memes and stuff like that, and because we're the meme channel.
Yes.
Or
did he have any of our memes on the bullets?
No, nothing that we've covered, I don't think. But we're gonna go into detail of that because it is a little weird that we haven't addressed, and somebody was literally killed by memes. So that is something that I have been intentionally quiet about because of the lack of information that
Right.
was surrounding it. But there is an episode in the works that's coming soon.
Okay.
But I find it convenient that he's described and listed every single thing a prosecution would need, and conveniently told the person he's confessing it all to never show up in media.
Right.
I don't buy it. Now, I don't believe that this was a complete conspiracy to take out Charlie Kirk. I'm not convinced by any of those conspiracy theories, and I'd rather not dive into them right now. I am just expressing my own skepticism with that conversation specifically. That does not mean it's not true. It could very much be a real conversation, but to me it reeks. It really reeks. And again, I don't know that it's not true. I just know that I began reading the conversation with the assumption that it was true, and I ended reading that conversation with a lot of suspicion. That being said, this style of skepticism and speculation, responding with humor, memes, and complete dismissal of the story altogether, it has become somewhat of a hallmark of the internet. Looking back at the internet history, it seemed early on people were more willing to, like, people were more willing to believe nonsense. And now people wear their skepticism almost like a badge of honor. You know, like the skepticism is really encouraged online now.
Yeah.
In some cases, almost too much, where we're not believing actually true things, you know?
Yeah, myself doing that. Like, I'll be going through Facebook and be like, I don't believe any of this shit.
Yeah.
You know, it's like National Geographic or something like that. Like, they're gonna lie.
I took a picture of my cat in the living room, and as soon as it popped up after, like, I was looking at it, there was a little tweak, a little initial reaction of, that's AI. I took the fucking picture. And there was still that little, like, check for AI, you know?
Anything that's too cute or too perfect in any way, like, that's fake.
Too big, too fast, set up just absolutely perfectly. Like, almost, it's most images online at this point are AI, it seems like. And so that I had that same little reaction. I took the fucking photo, right?
Yeah.
I know it's not AI. I took it, but that part of my brain, that defense mechanism is there now because we're bombarded with nonsense.
Yeah, and I just don't believe anything anymore.
Exactly. And it become kind of a nihilist, like, just because of how much fucking fake shit is out there. And so, like, early on in the internet, a lot of information got spread because people were more willing to, they were less skeptical when the internet first came about because they weren't well practiced.
We hadn't been fooled yet.
Yeah, they hadn't been fooled enough times yet, you know? So misinformation got spread, including things like how Pepsi was putting out cans that had the Pledge of Allegiance on them, and they wanted to not put "Under God" on the cans because Pepsi, they're a bunch of heathens, you see. That's fucking stupid, right? No company's going to take that risk. It's not going to happen. That's dumb, and it's dumb to believe. But a lot of people believed it because they hadn't run into the plethora of lies that is on the internet right now. You know, like, they haven't become familiarized with the amount of bullshit there is.
There's a lot of bullshit.
And especially early on, and still mostly today, a lot of conspiracy theories and nonsense on the internet was the realm of libertarians, far-right and right-wing publications, radio shows, and the like. What worries me right now is that skepticism has become such a badge of honor that we are finding conspiracies showing up more often on the left. And a lot of it has to do probably with the fact that our current administration has given us a lot of reason not to trust them. And grifters are filling the gaps of our skepticism. Our most recent episode, called Be Careful with Donald Trump Memes, that I did with Dr. Hoda, spoke about how we need to be careful with our sources, even when something seems to fit our narrative, even if it's something that would support a cause that we fight for, you know, that we are pushing, or it supports our values in some way. We still need to be careful with that information because sometimes we could be the victims of bullshit.
Oh, yeah.
The reason why a lot of people on the right, though, were easy targets for grifters selling conspiracy nonsense is because a lot of the information from mainstream publications were things that people on the right did not want to believe, including a lot of very well fact-checked sources. So the skepticism gaps on the right were a denial of factual reality. So where the grifters get to step in is to fill those gaps with convenient explanations or stories, fabricated evidence, that kind of thing, and stuff that confirms what the right wing wants to believe.
Yeah.
Skepticism is good, but an unhealthy over-skepticism leads to speculation, like I demonstrated with the text messages. Speculation leads to a desire for an explanation that is more satisfying. And a lot of us like to believe that we are satisfied by facts, but what's often the case is, especially with online content, is that people have a tendency to seek out not what is real, but what verifies what they already want to believe. I think it's extremely important that those on the left do not fall in the same patterns of confirmation-seeking behaviors that can lead to weaknesses in our reason that would be targeted by grifters, just as they were employed against people on the right by figures like Alex Jones, Turning Point USA, and sadly, Coast to Coast AM. I miss the Art Bell days. That show used to be fun. So we should keep an open mind to the fact that we can be easily wrong and we can be easily fooled, and we should give more consideration to the things that we don't want to believe. But we should definitely employ skepticism when reading clearly made up stories online. We should also employ skepticism when we are being told by a profoundly corrupt administration that the person who killed the friend on the right spelled out all the necessary evidence in a text message, or that someone who shot at an ICE facility wrote anti-ICE, a phrase no one anywhere uses, on a bullet with a fucking pen. But let's also give some grace. As hard as it is to believe, maybe people did clap on the bus, but one thing I know for sure, Tombstone was fucking right. So what do you think?
I think you got some good points in there. You should take everything with a grain of salt.
Yes.
You never know.
Yeah, I think one of the best ways to approach, especially stories being sold by public figures, is to find if there are independent sources also corroborating that same story. And are they using sources? How do they know the information they're selling you? That's also very important.
Yeah.
It wouldn't take long. Somebody who's constantly spouting bullshit like Alex Jones, it wouldn't take long to find that a claim that he has made is false, because sometimes he does use a source, but he either didn't read it, doesn't understand it, or just goes by the headline.
Right.
And if you were to read into things and fact check people like that, then you're going to find very quickly who the grifters are, who the liars are, the ones who can source their information. And when you look at those sources, it does verify the information. That is more likely to be true. Does it guarantee that you're never going to be fooled? Does it guarantee that you're not going to run into bullshit and somehow believe it? No. But it's a healthy skepticism to look into things, to try to understand them. So instead of doing an immediate backlash where we could end up having a victim like Tombstone, or instead of just accepting things at face value, it's okay to approach things with a healthy skepticism and see where the actual evidence is, because there are sources that you can use. There are independent sources that can help corroborate stories. So, but the bus stories, a little harder to corroborate. Although I think, he would have somebody on that bus who could also say, oh yeah, I was there, it happened, this, I don't know. Seems like, I don't know. That's stupid.
Yeah.
Stupid.
A little bit.
Well, thank you all so much for listening. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
And then everybody clapped.
Yay.